Okay, so welcome back to our part two of our podcast with Aniruddha Kane. So once again, thank you so much, Aniruddha, for being with us today. I would like to start this part asking you about your international experience. Uh, you mentioned that you worked across the world in Dubai, in Australia, in India, in the US. So I'm sure in different geographies, you got to learn a lot of different cultures, different ways of management, different styles of operations on airports, even. So, what unique perspectives or lessons that you learned, in your experience around the world?
People from different parts of the world have different work cultures. I'll give you um, my perspective. So I grew up in India, and my entire career has been in the majority of my career has been in the US, and I was very used to the US style of working. So I worked for a consulting firm for many years, ground transportation first, and then in aviation. But all consulting firms have the same philosophy. You want to maximize the billable hours that you work. You want to charge. You want to make sure that majority of the time at work is billable, right? Yeah. A long period of time for many years, all I did was work. My life revolved around work. Work was everything, and people in my company used to compete. Oh, I 40 hours is a regular work week, but people would bill 60 hours, uh, 60 hours a week, so 150% billable. People would sometimes work 70 hours a week, and I did that too for a while, working 60 hours or 70 hours, so basically working 20 or 30 hours more than what is required was like a prestige thing. I used to brag about how much work we have, how billable we were. And then I moved to Australia, which has a completely different work culture, and I was shocked. It took me a long time to get used to. So I lived in Australia for a couple of years. I had a fabulous opportunity to live in Australia, and it's a completely different work culture. I was absolutely shocked. People in Melbourne come into work at like 9. They do not come into the office before 9. They leave at 5. They will not leave at 5:05. They'll not leave at 5:10, 5:15. They will leave at 5. They may leave at 4:45, but not after 5. I had a very difficult time getting used to that because I was used to the US style of working where work meant everything. And I would get like really annoyed with people I was working with in Australia because I'd be like, "Hey, we have a project deadline. We need to submit this on Monday," and people were like, "Nope, it's the weekend. We're gonna go home." And people do not share their phone numbers with their colleagues because they don't want to receive phone calls after work. They don't want to receive phone calls from their work colleagues over the weekend. So people actually do not share their phone numbers with their work colleagues, which I found to be very strange. So it might be a little bit exaggerated, but I've mentioned to a few of my friends and family that I mean no disrespect by this. I actually really like this. Now, people in Australia, I would always joke that treat work as a minor inconvenience that they have to get out of the way so they can continue living their life. Like I said, it took me a while to get used to that, but after a few months, I started to see the point of living that way. It is not all about work. People in Australia have so many different hobbies. Like people are into surfing, uh, people are into so many outdoor activities, so many people have so many different interests, and they actually want to spend time doing those things and not just working. And after a few months, I started to appreciate that perspective. And now that I'm back in the US, I try to incorporate that uh, work culture. I mean, I cannot completely bring that work culture into the US because the US has its own way of working. But when I'm working with my team members, I try to incorporate some of what I learned in Australia. So I want I want to have a good work life balance. Uh, Working late nights, working every single weekend is not something to be proud of. It's something I learned after working in Australia. Spending time with family, spending time doing the things that you like to do is just as important, if not more important than work. That is something I learned from living in Australia. I would not have experienced that side of living had I not moved to Australia. So I worked in the Middle East and I worked in India and China, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
And it's the other extreme. It's all about work. It's
Yeah.
all about work. So it is important to realize, it is important to think about what you like, what you want, what kind of a work-life balance you want in your life. And you're only going to get that by experiencing different work cultures,
Yeah.
by working with people from different backgrounds, and then picking and choosing what you like, and then leaving aside what you don't.
Yeah. So very importantly, you mentioned it's sometimes, in cultures like India, maybe even the US, uh, you are trained in such a way that people will frown upon things like leaving at 5 o'clock, for example. That one example that you gave. In India, we joke if somebody leaves at 5 o'clock, hey, are you doing a half day today? Right? So a lot of people do it in a very healthy and joking manner, but some of them might be serious about it. So that courage required to kind of live life fully uh, is not always taught in India, or is not always looked upon as positive aspect. I mean, nowadays there's a culture of, I keep hearing this 996, which is like you work for, from 9 to 9, 6 days a week. Uh, Again, crazy things happening all over the world, and especially in the startup world. But what you mentioned really opens eyes about how different cultures influence, even working styles. Uh, what I wanted to ask you is, did you see a drop in the amount of overall work that happens in these countries, or on the other hand, did you see an increase in efficiency when people are actually at work?
I have myself, been that. I told you,
Yeah.
maximizing billable hours and working as many hours in a week was like a prestige thing, like, as a
Yeah.
bragging point, right? And I used to work like that. I used to work 12-hour days. I used to work late nights very, very often. There have been times that I've worked every single weekend for a period of like 3 or 4 months. And I used to be proud of that. And what I will tell you is a lot of times that is not necessary. I mean, sometimes you do have like a big deadline, and you do have to put in some extra effort. You have to put in the extra time to finish your project.
Hmm.
But that shouldn't be the norm. That should be the exception. Like sometimes everyone has to do that, right? My own experience, as well as managing a team now, I've realized that working long hours does not really mean a lot of work. If you don't have enough time to take a break, uh, do something that you like, then your efficiency at work drops. You are not going to get as much done um, if you are just working 16 hours a day, day in and day out. Work 8 hours, take a break, do something you like, spend time with your family, spend time with your kids, maybe go work out, and come back the next day. I promise you, you will achieve just as much as you would on a day when you work um, 16 hours and are like just completely exhausted by the end of it.
And that's the irony. And in fact, we spoke about this, about even selecting careers, what you said, that we sometimes do things to please others versus we do things that might be more efficient, that might be more effective, even. So that's the more courageous thing to do. So I hope that we as individuals and even as a community, as a culture, uh, you know, start adopting some of these practices which will help us live a better life. So career is not always about work, work, work. I mean, we do say career planning, but it is actually life planning, isn't it? If you plan your life properly, your careers are also much better, and vice versa.
So I'll give you an example. I know people who come into work at like um, 7 in the morning
Hmm.
and are at work till like 9 p.m. and they're at work 14 hours every day, 5 days a week, sometimes six or 7 days a week. I have noticed that a lot of these people are not actually working 14 hours. A lot of time goes in, just chatting with their work colleagues. What a good talk. Uh, People will leave, take a long lunch, then they'll come back. Um, and then at like 3 p.m., they'll suddenly realize that they have a lot of work to do. And then they'll start working, and they'll actually get a lot of work done between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. But why have you spent 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the office? Why? And these people like to look down upon people who come in at 9, work efficiently through 5, and then leave at 5. Like I said, I'm guilty of a lot of these things as well. I've mentioned that I have worked a lot of very, very long hours, and I thought that's just how it is. I tell my team, this is the project. We have these meetings. We have these weekly check-ins or bi-weekly check-ins. We have these meetings with clients. You have to attend all meetings. You have to be prepared to present at meetings. You have to get your work done on time. Beyond that, I don't care what hours you work. If you're a very, very efficient worker, you can do everything in 20 hours. Good for you. I'm not going to say that you have to be in the office for 40 hours, 50 hours. Yeah. If you can get your work done in 20 hours, more power to you. Good for you. Finish the work, and that's it. If you want to work, there are people who like to work in the mornings. There are people who like to work late at night. Yeah. So I make it a point to not tell people to be in the office from like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or they have to be in the office from 7 p.m. to 4 p.m. I like the concept of flexible hours, and because different people have different working styles, right? Some people, like I said, work better at night. Some people work better in the morning. The people that are working for you or with you appreciate that they have flexible working hours. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely. As they say, you learn by making mistakes or from your mistakes, but it is even better to learn from others' mistakes. So I would say that we as a culture, as individuals, we can take this lesson that if we can be courageous enough to say this to our co-workers that what, I'm doing my work efficiently, I'm making sure that I'm meeting my deadlines, as you said, but then beyond that, give me the flexibility to even live my life, isn't it? So very well said, Ani, and thanks a lot. In your role, as you became more and more senior, you're dealing with teams that you manage. In the industry that you are in, aviation industry, there are so many parts. I'm sure you have to talk to a lot of different departments. You have to make sure that everybody is collaborating, is in sync. So a lot of negotiation might be required. A lot of discussions might be required. Any particular approaches or skills that you think people should build to kind of be successful in this industry?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that growing up, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by people from very different backgrounds. Yeah. And the reason that is important is because when you work in a complex industry, be it a software firm or an airport, any industry, you tend to have a lot of stakeholders, and they have different priorities. They have different perspectives, and we live in a very polarized world, right? Like a lot of people are very, you have to do it this way. It's my way or the highway. That way of working, that way of thinking doesn't really go very far. I'll give you an example from my workplace. So I work in network planning at United, and my role in network planning is air traffic strategy. So I work with air traffic controllers. I work with meteorologists, so people who specialize in weather. Yeah. And my role is to study all these things, look at construction that happens at airports, look at bad weather events that may happen at an airport, and come up with a strategy to ensure that United can have a reliable operation year-round, irrespective of all these other extraneous factors. Correct. Now, there is another division in my company called network planning, just as important as air traffic strategy. So what network planning does is their role is to basically build a flight schedule that the airline will operate on a given day, right? So they want to fly as many passengers as possible every single day, which a lot of times means adding more flights to the schedule. So they want to basically have as many flights on a given day so that they can fly maximum number of passengers possible. That maximizes revenue for the company. So an extremely important role in the company. But if you have way too many operations at the airport, that can also overwhelm the airport, and that means a less reliable operation, right? So we are trying to have a more reliable operation. Network planning wants to have as many flights every day as possible. So we have competing priorities, right? But you cannot say that what I'm saying is right and what you're saying is wrong, right? Because as I said, they are an equally important part of the airline business. So you have to be able to work with them. You have to be able to realize that their role is also very critical, and you have to be able to collaborate with them. You have to be able to talk to them, and understand what their logic is, what their perspective is, and then you present your perspective, and then you have to come up with a collaborative decision. If you don't have that, you cannot move forward. You cannot succeed. So I apologize for the long answer, but I'm just trying to stress on the importance of collaborating, about talking to people, from different backgrounds, who have different perspectives. Because when you start working, when you are in a company that caters to many different stakeholders, you it is a very essential skill to be able to talk to different people and to be able to collaborate.
Absolutely. And skills that are not necessarily taught in an engineering school or in the technical learning that you do. So I think some of the skills that students or professionals may have to develop over a period of time. And I hope that some of our schools start also paying more attention to collaboration, communication, diversity, and these kind of skills. I know that some schools are much better at that and some are not. I do want to ask you about the career paths or the education paths that you feel uh, are relevant or are correct if people want to enter this industry that you are in. Because if I look at the education space today, uh, the way at least I deal with students or the questions that we get, I don't see a lot of questions being asked about how do I enter the airport management space or the aviation industry, because my feeling is that people think that these are very inaccessible or overly complex kind of career paths. Uh, is that assumption true, according to you?
No, I don't think that the aviation field is inaccessible. Absolutely not. A lot of people seem to think that you have to be a pilot in order to be in the aviation field, right? But as I mentioned, there are a lot of things other than just flying the airplane uh, that are essential for the airline business. I would have absolutely loved. I told you earlier I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I would have absolutely loved to be an airline pilot, right? Best thing I can imagine. But growing up, I didn't have the money. Learning to become a pilot is an extremely expensive thing. I didn't have that kind of money growing up that I could, just pay to become a pilot. I got into this field from a technical background, like data analysis, number crunching, math. There are several other fields, environmental planning or sustainability, very important part of aviation. I talked about designing these very complex baggage systems to screen thousands of bags every minute, which means a lot of electronics engineers or computer engineers are required. Um, Logistics planning. So there are a lot of different things that are required for the aviation industry. So there are multiple ways to get into this business. It's not just becoming a pilot. So it is definitely not inaccessible. It's a huge industry. It's a huge industry in developing countries like India and China. And if you want to get into it, it's absolutely fascinating. Every day is different. Every day you get to learn something new, and it's. Uh, I would not work in any other industry. I absolutely love the aviation industry.
Wow, so you definitely cleared that up, Aniruddha, that first of all, the industry is not inaccessible. A lot of the education paths that our students are already in, should look upon the aviation industry as one of a promising career options, and should not fret or should not be scared of something that might look complex from the outside. But there is a good career to be had in this. So I'm sure our students now, are more educated and will continue to learn to see this as a viable career option. But I want to ask you a little bit more personal question, Aniruddha, as to how do you keep yourself kind of uh, on the cutting edge of the learning in this industry? How do you continue to learn at your position now that you are already in a leadership position? How do you keep yourself updated? How do you keep yourself state of the art kind of a technology in this industry? And I ask this in the background of AI, which has disrupted almost all of the industries. So, are you also now into learning AI for the aviation industry, and how is that disrupting the industry?
AI is definitely um, becoming very commonplace in the aviation industry, like every other industry, I think.
Yes.
I am by no means an expert in AI or ML using Chat GPT to, help me edit my emails. So I never asked ChatGPT to write an email for me. My emails tend to be, or my tends to be very technical. So I always like write out my email. I basically jot down my thoughts, and then I'll ask AI to maybe uh, edit my email, make sure there are no grammatical mistakes, or make sure there are no typos. So that's how I started using AI. Now I'll sometimes use AI for simple data analysis tasks. My team members will use AI to develop some code for data analysis. So we have been using AI.
So, Ayuda, you've shared some great experiences, stories about, how your career evolved. I'm sure you must have also come across certain, as you say, bloopers when you go to these various airports across the world. Any couple of funny stories to share as to, how somebody might have got it grossly wrong, or you found it funny, or you found that this is such so obvious mistake based on your education and your experience in the industry? Any couple of stories that you can share?
I'll give you one example. So uh, majority of my bulk of my career has been working for New York airports. Now, New York airports are some of the busiest airports in the world.
Yeah.
There are about a dozen airports in the whole greater New York region, and because it's such a densely populated area, because there are so many operations at all of these airports,
Yeah.
the airspace that these airports use is shared, and that airspace is extremely congested. And because of that, the air traffic controllers at these airports have to do some ridiculous things to keep these airports functional, to make sure the airplanes in the air are separated from airplanes from the other airport, right? So the things that air traffic controllers do in New York, you're not going to see that in any other part of the world. And I was used to that because that's where I spent most of my career. And then I got an opportunity to move to Australia for a couple of years, and I was going to be working on some Australian airports there, right? So I talked to my manager, and I'm like, "Hey, do you have any advice for me?" And he said, "Yes, I have some very simple advice." And he basically told me to not be the New York asshole. Pardon my French, but that's what he told me. And what he meant by that is, don't walk into a meeting at, let's say, Sydney Airport or Melbourne Airport, which are like much, much smaller facilities. Because if you walk into a meeting and say, oh, you should do this because New York does this, you should do that because New York does that, people are just going to laugh at you, right? Because things that are very commonplace in New York may not be practical for Melbourne Airport or Sydney Airport or any smaller facility, right? So always, so I kind of laughed with him about that, but I actually did meet people who make that mistake. They will walk into a meeting and they'll start talking about like stuff that is not very relevant. or stuff that is not very practical. So yeah, it was a funny discussion that I had with my manager, but it is what I learned from that is to have um, the right perspective when you're working on a project. Like, what is important for this airport? How does this airport function? You cannot just bring everything that New York does and implement it in a different airport. So you have to be realistic about that.
Of course, and you mentioned that the power of networking, talking to people, keeping yourself updated. What other things that you do to keep yourself, to keep that perspective in yourself? Maybe reading books, maybe listening to other podcasts. I mean, what are some of your favorite books, so to say?
People do like to recommend a lot of self-help books, and I have bought a lot of self-help books. But I have realized that I find them extremely boring. Like, I have tried to read self-help books, but I just can't focus. I just can't get through the first 50 pages of, do this, do that, 7 effective ways, or, chicken soup for, or this for dummies, that for dummies, whatever. I just cannot get through a self-help book. So when I read books, it's to basically take a break. So I'll read books that are fiction, or basically I'll read novels. They don't have to be fiction; they can be based in reality. But uh, I read books for entertainment. Majority of the time, I read books for entertainment, not for education. I mean, I do learn from these books as well, but the main goal of reading those books is entertainment. When I'm like really stressed, I cook, because that is one thing that I find to be a big stress relief for me. Um, I find it very meditative, the whole cooking process. Now, not a lot of people enjoy cooking. I do. I also have been trying to learn the violin. Trying to learn the violin. Like, I'm not very musically gifted. My daughter also learns the violin, and she's way, way, way better than me. I basically like to say that I just torture the violin for a few minutes every day.
Those are the more difficult instruments to learn.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not about. I don't want to become an artist. I don't want to play in concerts. I just do it for fun, right? I do it because I like it. I work out. I go out for runs. I really like to run. So yeah, I mean, each person has different things that they enjoy. So I would basically definitely advise you to do something that you genuinely enjoy, because that is extremely essential.
Of course, and I mean, when you were talking, I was just thinking that doing a variety of things, living life to the fullest, can also help you, learn about people, about different perspectives, and then that can also eventually help you do your job better and help you progress in your career better, right? So we've spoken about a lot of things in your career. You've shared some really interesting, funny, deep stories even, Aniruddha. So my last question to you in this podcast is about your North Star. What is that long-term vision? What is that goal that still strives you, that still keeps you going? After all of this, after all leadership positions, having such a great career, where is it that you want to eventually reach in your life, in your career?
A lot of people have this ambition that I'm going to have a startup. I'm going to become uh, a CEO. I'm going to manage like thousands of people. I want to climb the ladder, so to say. I'm not that. So, and it's okay. Like, if someone offers me a CEO job and a lot of money, I will actually turn it down, because I don't want that. Because yeah, it is a lot of money. It's a very prestigious title, but with it comes a lot of responsibility. You're gonna be stressed out all the time. You're gonna not be able to sleep at night. When you ask me what my North Star is, my North Star is to work. I want to work on things that I enjoy working on, like management. Some people are great managers. I do manage people today, but management never came to me like naturally. I started in a very technical role. I'm still in a very technical role. So management is not something that came naturally to me. In fact, I struggled to learn how to manage people, right? So a lot of times when I was working on projects, and then my manager would tell me that, hey, you have to teach new people, you have to train new people. If you want to do different things, you need to train your replacement.
Yep.
Right. And I found it very hard to do in the beginning because I'm like, I can just do it so much faster if I do it myself. Like, it's going to take me so much more time to train someone else. And to get out of that mindset was extremely difficult. I mean, I did it eventually, and I still struggle with it sometimes, but I did it eventually. So that is very, very important, to train your replacement, so to say. So you are free to do other things. So some people are great managers. I am not. A lot of people are not great managers. Some people want to climb the ladder. They are very ambitious. They want to be CEO. They want to be they want to have a startup. I'm not that. I want to retire at a decent age. I want to retire when my body is still functioning, so I can travel. I can uh, go hiking. I can be surrounded by woods. That is my North Star. That is what I truly want to do.
Well, awesome, awesome. And
So,
you speaking about that example of kind of helping somebody to do your job so that you are more available reminds me of an advice that one of my mentors gave me early in my career, that most people have this kind of a dream that they should be the most indispensable employees or people in the company. But he said, you know, growth happens only when you are dispensable. Only when somebody else can come and take your role is when you can do other stuff. Is when you can even think about doing other stuff and you can grow mentally. So I was able to relate to the to your North Star in that way, and have fun, guys. I mean, that's a great North Star to have. I wish more people have such kind of a North Star. So the kind of base that you need to create to have fun is also very important. I'm sure because you have that, you are able to now have that kind of a North Star. But it's a great aspiration to have. Is to spend time with your friends, is to go hiking when you want, is to spend time with your family, is to do things that you love to do. And with such an accomplished career, Ani, you would definitely deserve that. And we wish to see you, helping more people have fun. Which is your North Star.
and I mean, I will tell you this one thing at the end. Like, I was not born with any of this, right? Like I told you earlier at the podcast, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was just going with the flow, and I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of stupid things. So it's a very cliched saying, and I kind of learned it the hard way. It's okay to uh, make mistakes. So yeah, it sounds very cliched, but it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, but it is true.
And everyone is going to make mistakes, and it's okay, as long as you can think back and not make that mistake again. I think it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, learn from others' mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, learn from them even. And I think this has been a fascinating conversation, eye-opening even, because frankly, I didn't know enough about the industry that you work in, Ani, the aviation industry, the transportation planning industry, and uh, I feel you've opened definitely my eyes, and all the possibilities that are available for students today to build their careers in this industry. So it has been a fantastic conversation with you, and I'm sure we could have a couple more hours of this conversation and not tire, but we need to have a life beyond this also. So that's your advice. So, but I'm sure we will do a part two someday and also talk a lot more about your cooking passion, your music passion, the violin passion, and so many other aspects of the person that Aniruddha Kane is. So once again, thanks a lot for spending this time with us, and we wish you the best. And keep coming back and keep motivating us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I had a great time talking to you about all these things.
Thank you.